Hello, welcome to the New Visions Math Remote Learning Resources webinar series, session 2. Who's getting into the session and getting settled, we would appreciate if you would chat to us by sharing one app that you've been using or that you would recommend your colleagues use that has been helpful with your students. And for those of you who aren't sure where the chat is, it's on the lower bar of the Zoom window. There's a little speech bubble that says chat. Just click on that and chat to everyone. I see we've got the Google Classroom app. Any other interesting apps folks are using? All right, we got some folks I see playing around with the Pear Deck add-on and a lot of people who are utilizing Google Classroom. All right, that sounds good. Hopefully by the end of this session, there will be a few more that you'll find are interesting enough to delve into. We wanted to make sure that everyone's comfortable with the Zoom environment. So here are a couple of things to keep in mind. The features that we'll ask that you are familiar with and utilize during the session include the feedback icons that you'll find if you click on and open the participants window. You can easily stack that over the group chat so that you can see not only who's here, but also use some of the feedback features so that we know how you're doing and how we're doing during the session. If you found it, raise your hand. I got 2 raised hands, yay. 3, okay, there we go. So we've gone through a few of the chat features. Another thing to keep in mind, there also is that feature of reactions, which includes thumbs up and applause. We always love applause. Again, my name is Wendy Thomas Williams. I'm one of the curriculum instruction team members here at New Visions, and I'm joined with my co-host, Jen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer. I'm excited to be here with you in this virtual setting as well and learn together how to use some of these remote learning platforms and resources. During the session, if you have any questions about technology or if there are any issues you're encountering or things you're curious about, you can chat me privately. So it's in that same chat window, but instead of everyone, you can click on that down arrow and click Math Curriculum or Jennifer. So that'll send me a private chat. Also, if you haven't yet emailed me your gmail.com email address, please do that. We are using a Google Classroom sandbox, but it can only work if you send an email account that ends in gmail.com. So we know that your school accounts are Google Apps for Educators, but we need the gmail.com ending. And do not worry, we are not going to hold on to these emails or use it for any other purposes. We will delete it after this session. We just need it for that sandbox. So you can chat me privately. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, and if you already have an invite from the Google Classroom, please make sure you join.
Okay, so after welcome and introductions, we're going to dive into a micro routine. We'll explain that when we get to it. We're going to review quickly session norms and Zoom environment features. Actually, we've introduced the Zoom environment features, so we'll just be looking at the session norms. Then we'll do an overview of our remote learning resources plan, and we'll delve into a few activities within a couple of the plans that we have created and posted on our remote learning resources website. And then we'll have a bit of Q&A for our closing. So let's get Zooming. Just take a quick read of our norms and netiquette. For obvious reasons, we want you to remain in mute just to keep background noise at a minimum. And we ask you that you please use video. That helps to put a face with a name and create a sense of community. And it keeps me from feeling like I'm just talking into space by myself. again, please make sure that you have sent to your Gmail account. And use chat everyone for general questions. But if you have specific questions or any technical difficulties, privately chat that to Jen so that she can help with suggestions for troubleshooting. You may need to go out of the session if something happens with your computer. One of the quick ways to troubleshoot that is to just exit and then come back in. But you'll need to let us know ahead of time that that's what you're going to do so Jen can let you back in. All right. Our first activity is a micro routine called Unscramble. So if you have a piece of paper and a pen handy, please pull that up because you're going to need it. This micro routine is from a set of micro routines that the revisions, some of our colleagues have developed as literacy routines that can be used across content areas. The nice thing about these is that they serve to help students to transfer ownership of their learning. I want to make two quick notes about this because I think that word study and vocabulary development, in particular in mathematics, is something that's important. And this particular vocabulary routine connects to Hallmark 4 of the New York State DOE's advanced literacies, and hopefully you're familiar with those. Another thing to keep in mind, I think, if you're familiar with Zaretta Hammond's work, she has, in one of her recent workshops, talked about helping students to build word wealth, and doing that using strategies that include word study and word play for not only academic purposes, but for helping to see how students are connecting with the content using vocabulary. It can connect whether it's in a social sense, connect culturally or academically. This is one of those activities that we can use to help them to build word knowledge. And the what for this particular micro routine is it's basically to practice vocabulary that has been recently introduced during a lesson. It could be used whenever it is suitable. For example, right after vocabulary has been learned, say the day after or a week after, or returning to it when they will need to use it for upcoming text, whether you're using math literature or word problems. So let's see how this goes. Generally, all of the micro routines are exactly what they sound like. They are micro in nature. They should only last a couple of minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. And if you're doing this particular one and you do it twice as it's written, it would take at most 4 minutes. So the routine gives us 10 seconds to look at the scrambled words, then 10 seconds to look at the scrambled word along with a clue, and then 2 minutes to actually unscramble and create an analogy with the word and keeping in mind the definition. So we're going to do a scramble. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. And when I show you the scrambled word, I do want you to know that it's 2 words, not just one. So let's take a crack at it and just take a look. You have 10 seconds. Okay. Now I'm going to give you 10 seconds to look at the scrambled words. Again, there's 2 words. And I'm going to also show you a clue. You don't need to do anything yet. Just take a look. 10 seconds. All right. Now, normally in this part of the routine, you would put students in partners and have them unscramble the 2 words. I'm going to ask you to do it individually and then chat directly to the host and presenter, not to everyone, what you think the two words are. And then about halfway through the 2 minutes, I'm going to ask you to share with everyone in the chat an analogy using the terms. So you would write the term blank blank is like blank. All right, I'm going to start the clock and go.
Okay, I can respond. She wrote remote learning.
Okay.
Thanks, Rowena.
Yes. Okay. Okay, which is correct. All right. Now, if we could have everybody, we're going to go back to the last part, which is please use the term in an analogy and do chat that to everyone. Okay, we have a response from Dawn. Remote learning is like distance learning. Remote learning is like floating in the clouds. All right, keep them coming. And what will happen is that will give you, and that gives us an idea of how you're relating to the topic at hand. Time management and being on your own island. Thank you, you guys. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. Next, we're going to take a look at some of the remote learning resources and a bit of background. We are, as a team, putting together these because we wanted to support our educators in our network and throughout the city with right now resources for remote learning in each of the content areas that would be helpful to be used either as is or modified in whatever way you see best suited for the online for online access and otherwise with your students. And we also wanted to provide some normative ways for communicating via technology within the remote learning space with your students, with each other, and also with parents. The idea behind our learning plans has been based on this instructional model that we've created. And one of the things that we intentionally tried to keep in mind is how teachers and students are having to work across a spectrum of access with regard to technology tools as well as internet access. So you'll find that materials were developed keeping in mind access could be on the low end of use of technology as all the way up to the high end. Each of the activity or plans has been developed with the ideas of keeping a beginning that introduces or contextualizes the topic with a task or a task set, then supports and elicits student thinking through independent and small group work time, and then provides a way to collect student work individually or in groups for progress monitoring and doing formative assessment. We also want to keep in mind and help you to keep in mind this foundational piece about social emotional well-being. And so each plan includes some suggestions about how to keep that connection with students so that they're not feeling so isolated. Each of the remote learning plans that we posted for the math content area has the following template. You'll see that there are helpful links at the very top, the name of the course and the topic, and a general explanation about what the content will cover. And then you'll have these 5 segments of the learning plan. Each one starts with a launch that introduces the topic and exploration that students would complete to delve a little bit further into the topic. Then there's work time for independent and small group work for students to practice and re-engage in the content, followed by the check-in, which is where we insert the SEL piece, and then the wrap-up that you can use for formative assessment purposes. I'm going to ask Jen to join in to discuss this particular plan as a sample way to look at what the template means in terms of a specific subject area.
So this is a geometry example of one of the completed learning plan templates. This is not an in-person lesson plan that we would use when we meet our students in the school building, but it shows a list of activities that fit within the scope of about a week or two. So it's a sequence of tasks that are connected and intended to be used flexibly. Because again, we're in this uncharted territory of timing might be something that we think of differently. So here's a layout of how we are exploring the learning plan during the webinar. So soon we will be exploring some activities within the launch segment, and what we're going to do is do some math in the Google Classroom sandbox. The one that we're focusing on is which one doesn't belong. And we chose to do that because it's a task that is across multiple courses that we offer, as well as in different units. It's also a task that there are examples out in the internet. For example, the wodb.ca is a website that you can access with other kinds of which ones don't belong. And it's one that teachers can use to create your own. So it's very versatile, and we've, in this case, used it to focus in on the launch portion, but it can be used in other segments of the learning plan. We also did an unscramble microroutine. So Wendy introduced that as something that we can use to develop vocabulary. It can be included in the launch, but it can also be used later in the learning plan to review vocabulary as well. So you might include it in a wrap up. The other thing that you'll see when you're in the sandbox playing with the tasks is a feedback plan. So we are thinking about how we can effectively and meaningfully and in a timely manner give students feedback, especially like even within a remote setting. And so you might see an example of that in one of the which ones do not belong. And then also throughout this webinar, we are kind of doing this overview of the whole learning plan. And it's okay if you haven't accessed the learning plan yet. There'll be time during breakout session 2 where you can explore and also collaborate with colleagues around how the different tasks might be used.
Okay, a quick note on online teaching methods. We wanted to use this graphic just to bring our attention to this understanding that we're going to be working, and you and your students are working along a spectrum of high-tech, low-tech, student-centered versus teacher-centered. And what we want you to do is to think about where you are in these quadrants. Are you working in more of a low-tech, teacher-centered, or low-tech, student-centered, or somewhere along the way? So consider that. And what we also hope to highlight are ways to use technology integration to get more or farther along the spectrum with student-centered and interactivity, which includes the use of movable objects, writable spaces, and hopefully you've created some type of a central hub, whether it's Google Classroom or some other learning management system that allows easy submission of assignments, tasks, and assessments, and ways of communicating student progress. And there's a wealth of information out there, but teaching methods, teach.com has a number of resources for online teaching that might be helpful. So now we're going to take you into breakout 1 so that we can start doing a little bit of exploration.
Okay, so you're going to be in a moment sent into a breakout room with a few other folks in this session. And during that time, you're going to have an opportunity to, again, explore the which one doesn't belong, but also experience what it might look like from the student perspective of going into Google Classroom. So you might have a range of experiences with this tool in particular. But we are going to use it as a basis. So you can either explore it or if you're comfortable, the focus really is on the tasks. So there are two content tasks. One is Algebra 2, and the other one is a geometry, but they're in these different views. So you'll see what it looks like in a Pear Deck experience. You can also see what it looks like in a Desmos. You could see what it looks like when you have the assignment in Google Doc form through Google Classroom. And in that assignment, what you're going to see is how we're thinking about feedback for students. And then you can also see it as a question format. So the geometry task itself, the math content is the same, but the way it is presented to students is different. So in a moment, I'll send you out. But before that, Wendy has some things to
All right, here are your task directions. While you are in your breakout room with your group, we are asking that you do the math, and we're asking you to do that from obviously the student's perspective while you're in the Google sandbox, the Google Classroom sandbox. So explore, try to get to 3 of the ways that the which one doesn't belong has been put together, and also discuss how you might utilize 1 or 2 or however many of the different versions you think might be useful with your own students. Just a quick message about being in the chat rooms. It's helpful to have one person share your screen. We do know you will be you will have to open up another window in order to go into Google Classroom. And having one person share so that you can use that as a point of discussion is helpful. So you'll be able to get to the share screen from that bottom bar on your Zoom window. There's also the ability to annotate while you're in there and to utilize the chat. One other thing is if you find that you need help, there is an ask help but question mark at on the bottom bar, but it's also located along when you click on the more button, you'll get additional features, and ask for help is there as well. So session to do that, but on the website, we will ask you to go to remote.newvisions.org so that you can take a look at some of the math learning plans that we already have posted. This site will be updated on a regular basis, and the 2 that we mentioned today are the geometry, partitioning line segments learning plan, and the function families learning plan. And I think both of these are extended sets of tasks that would take from 1 to 2 weeks to complete if all of them are completed, which we're not saying or suggesting that anybody should have to do. It's just that there are enough activities within the range of the learning plan so that you can give students opportunities to re-engage in the content. And which one wasn't belong that you looked at were taken from the launch activities from these 2 specific plans. Okay. Just another reminder of some of the features that you have access to while you're in your breakout groups. And Jen, if you're ready, let us know.
Okay, I'm going to send you into breakout 2, and you'll have about 5 minutes to just do a quick exploration and identify some key things and questions that you might have. If you have any questions, you can definitely call us over.
And okay. There's the website again, remote.newvisions.org.
Yeah, so we definitely want that kind of feedback. And so there are different places where you can do that. You can email us, you can share it here or during office hours, which we'll chat about since that starts at 2 o'clock. And We also have a link in the resources, so you can actually respond to that and suggest things, because we want to be responsive to what teachers need, but then we also need to hear from you guys. So definitely provide that.
Thank you so much.
We only have 1 minute left. I can't believe that hour has already gone by so quickly. In the chat to everyone, could you list any takeaways from the exploration we just did, or any questions that you have that are lingering? And we may call on you to voice that as well, but send us a quick takeaway. And
Well, for me, I'm new to distant learning. This is Dawn, and this sort of gives me a new way, a fresh way of looking at it. How can I present to our kids? One of the things that we shied away from was to have that interaction with the kids. We used to use Zoom, and the kids would come on the board and write on the board and so forth. So this would maybe give us a different way of a different approach. So it's something that I think I can explore and see what I can do with my kids.
okay, and it looks like based on the chat that some of you feel like you need a little more time to explore those resources.
Yeah.
Okay, that's completely understandable. Just so you guys have our contact information, we certainly appreciate getting feedback so we know where you are and what kinds of things might be useful, helpful to you and your students. So feel free to email us. We will send you a copy of these slides. So if there's some things that you want to go through again, and there's also links to all of the websites that we visited. We want to mention to you that we also have on that website our calendar, which includes webinars as well as drop-in office hours. And we will be in office hours from 2 to 3 o'clock. So if you want to continue the conversation, feel free to join us.
Just go onto that calendar and click on the Zoom, and we'll be back with you in that new room.
We're not going anywhere. In order to get the CTLE credit, there's going to be a feedback form that we'll send post this session. So please make sure that you complete that. And within a week or two, you can check on the registration site for the CTLE credit to be awarded, and that way you'll be able to print the certificate. And with that, if you guys need to go, I know we do. We're glad that you spent this time with us, and hopefully you found a few gems or a few ideas that will help you in this new remote learning space that we're in now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Be well.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.